Implicit visual awareness indicates that there's a ghost process in the system that current instrumentation fails to detect and so account for. At a conceptual level, we're adrift, and so are not engaging properly. It's apparent that implicit spatial awareness presents a system of proximity cues forming a radial field structure around the locus of fixation. This couldn't be detected, propagated, or present using the system of electrical and chemical conductances associated with intensity receptors and neurons firing action potentials down the visual pathways. This field structure has next to nothing to do with the processes akin to optical projection. The camera record has next to nothing to do with the structure of the phenomenon, the visual encounter. The proposition, however unlikely it may seem, is that the detection of photons and intensity-related issues leading to neural spiking activity is distinct from a mechanobiological activity involving light and passive transduction. Research into mechanobiology is concentrating on, and with good reason, cell to biological level impact areas. We're suggesting that there's a linkage from cell to experiential phenomenon, a linkage to awareness and hence visual art. Where previously the articulation of contextual vision was limited to the strategies developed by visual artists as they intuitively studied the phenomenon, I make an attempt here to trace what I hope to be a credible story referring to aspects of current neuroscience that may relate to this implicit aspect of experiential reality. If reality is a relationship we form with the real, then the prediction is that this undertaking will bring sciences and the arts into step, and hence deepen our understanding of these relationships. We need to consider an alternative computational system initiating at the retina and dealing with information in the light array that our current instrumentation has not been designed to interface with, and which presents on an experiential basis as implicit contextual spatial awareness. Currently we consider contextual vision only in terms of it being adjacent to central vision, i.e. as being peripheral. We then view its contribution as being nothing more than a degraded form of focal vision. The story would be that a recoverable spatial medium becomes embedded in light as it travels through local environmental space. We'd be looking to mesoscopic physics and the scattering of light as it travels through a medium as a means to visualize the physics involved. The environment for the sensing glial Muller cell in the retina is light. So in mechanobiological terms, we would suggest that it senses light directly, as pressure. Nanoscale activity at the retinal cellular level, involving pre-stress tension, would initially passively interact with light quanta, again involving mesoscopic physics. The Muller and astrocyte cells of the retina, organizing to form the basis of a mechanobiological system, to function in accordance with the phase orientation of light, with the glial network across the main areas of the brain generating the basis for perceptual structure and core aspects of subjective awareness. Environmentally conditioned light, with enfolded spatial data, would ultimately ensure that perceptual space presents as a medium that implicitly factors us into the environment. The proposition is therefore that there's a system of passive transduction, working with coherence and a phase-like propagation prior to the detection or formulation of bits and intensity-related calculation. Pre-stress tension exists as it does for the spider and web combination. The spider awaits deflections, sensed as vibrations, where the web becomes an extension of its sensory system. The information provides location and direction, spatial coordinates. We are sensitized as well as sensing. In the case of our perceptual structure, a system facilitating the collapse of a complex wave function without the formation of the bit is one where a calculation as such is not really performed. The possession of the fact never arises. The data potential remains implicit, simply presenting, following the collapse, a shadowy form or impression via the related mechanobiology. The process suggests a collapse to phase space around a locus, with everything surrounding the locus relating to it. The act of making the locus condenses implicit spatial awareness around it. We appear to be able to trigger the web or set a locus within our perceptual structure, which can perhaps be thought of as controlling an attractor. All of this is suggestive of dynamical systems and self-organizing criticality. If so, interactive phase space must be the seat of phenomenal responsiveness, of feeling. Attractors forming in this phase space would set internally generated waves that in turn would set or calibrate internal cell tensions and hence response to external forces. There'd also have to be a switching process associated with phase transition, capable of interfacing with electrical and chemical signaling. Perhaps we need to think about vision differently. Is sensory awareness conducted at a biological level as a series of function-specific ecologies? Is sensory awareness a series of differentiated systems that are brought together and integrated? What if they are all resonating within one system from the start, but with add-on specialities developed over evolutionary time to suit our ecological niche? Maybe there's not such a gulf between the hardware and the software. So do I see all of this as evidence of quantum reality being in play? Well, I don't really see the quantum reality problem at a conceptual level, but I can understand why others do. On an experiential level, I deduce that light has a dual orientation with respect to the macro space we inhabit, and that we are equipped to process both orientations. Our instrumentation can be organized to reveal aspects of this duality, but it doesn't correctly interface with it or mediate the situation. The result is we can't rationalize a situation from the records the instrumentation makes. Quantum reality issues are the failure to mediate one at the conceptual level. What occurs to us as experiential visual reality is the result of a system that makes quite a good job of the undertaking. Our relationship to light is sophisticated. The camera's isn't. The proposition is that we personally, directly feel implicit spatial awareness as a sensitized structure, as opposed to remotely detected. We would be at the retina, as well as receiving reports channeled through it. Through all of this, the paradoxical thing, if not counterintuitive implication, is that core phenomenological capabilities would ultimately rely on what may be considered a rather unesoteric mechanobiological process. However, the more I look into mechanobiology, the more esoteric it becomes. To perhaps complicate matters even further, it's also envisaged that dedicated interconnected activity between the two streams, initiating at the retina, is carried on through the visual pathways to assist the correlation of the two main data potentials. Retinal function would then have isolated two independent data potentials from the light array, while initiating a dialogue or system of exchanges and interactions between the two processing streams. Taken together, the initiation of these three activity lines would constitute the main function of retinal processing. For these reasons, the demarcation between the mainly mechanobiological and the synaptic activity is not going to be clear-cut. The need for extensive interaction between the two ensures that the delineation of activity occurring in these pathways can only be considered characterizations. It's a case of specialism ruling priority. The two independent data processing lines would generate implicit and explicit takes on the real, different forms of awareness with distinct characteristics. Taken together with the mediation dynamic, they would form perceptual structure, the dynamical architecture through which we become aware of our environment. There'd be three main protagonists to a typically functioning system of awareness. We'd term the full performing complement consciousness, with the relationship equipping us to operate in our ecological niche. Consciousness would then be a collective noun, not a definitive term distinguishing a mental state, operational in any particular area of the brain, or existing within any given physical system, or residing at any level of existence. It would be an impression, drawn from a composite mechanism that works for us. When all the key protagonists are nullified and inactive, i.e. under a general anaesthetic, we can term the condition unconscious. But it's simply a state of unawareness, enforced as contributing protagonists are suppressed. There is one point of order with respect to the painting. Through contextual space, the brush marks are the same size in terms of actual or real space. So the area of the real setting covered by the larger brush mark, rendering the floor, matches the small brush mark, rendering the wall of the building. Now I must point out, however, that my brushes can't scale this perfectly, and as I change from directional brush strokes to a radial or stipple brush mark, I have to cheat a bit so I can cover the range through my adopted rendering system.